We're gonna do. Here's what we're doing today. We don't have. I don't have anything set this planned. I'm going to respond to questions and comments and thoughts from the entire semester, and that's what we're doing. So, any questions you have, any comments, any thoughts, anything, this is your time to put it out there. And so we'll go in lots of different directions. It can be really personal. I'd rather not get too left-brained today. It's not like a left-brain day. You know what I mean? So whatever you have. So that's it, man. Joy, can you take a mic? Or are you eating? No. No, you just like, what are you saying? Teach.
What are you talking about?
Can you just walk? If you could just walk around with a mic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Hey, so who's got a question? Like, who wants to kick something out? It's a relaxed day. Who's got a question? Let's just go. Let's start. Bro.
I think I left my glasses.
All right, Mom. All right, you're on, man.
I remember you mentioning at the beginning of the course that you went to Islam for 2 minutes, and you told us that you're going to get into that story. But
what was the story? Which one?
You getting to Islam for 2 minutes.
Oh,
I think he's saying when you accidentally converted to Islam.
Oh,
that
converted
story,
to
maybe?
Islam. Yeah. I didn't tell that story?
No, you haven't, no.
Oh, yeah. How do you accidentally convert to Islam? Dude, here's what happened, man. I thought I told this story. I did. I think I did. You weren't here.
Maybe he wasn't here. Tell it again.
You weren't here. All right.
Maybe briefly.
The 20-second version. I was in Istanbul, and I was trying to meet some Sufis because Sufism is really cool. And I met this Sufi sheikh, so to speak, and we started just really. We just sat in front of each other. He couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak any of the languages that he spoke. And we just were giggling for, I don't know, like an hour, man. It was like, because we were brothers in that moment. Like we were just in a different plane. And then he asked me, I could tell he wanted me to repeat after him. And so I did. And what I said was there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the only prophet, and so on and so forth. And then I got done, and I was Muslim. So I'm like, good to go, right? Yeah. I called my wife and said, I converted. All right. Who else? Bro.
I just wanted to ask that how did you set up your teams for Social 19 across the world in different countries? Like your team in Iran, India, and other countries as well.
Yeah.
Like how did you start setting them up?
The way, what happens is a lot of people who you meet are people that I have met in my life, right? So you know the story of like Bassam and Mr. Rashidi came into class, and some people from the Afghan team. And then sometimes people just call me. There are a lot of students who reach out to me, or professors, or people watch videos and they reach out, and so I've invited people into class who are just say students in another country, or and say like, hey, let's talk. So, but that's how we set it up. Everything's a little bit different, but I have really a lifetime of traveling and going to different places, and so like in Colombia, the team in Colombia is like just from a team that we developed. But really, it's just, after I did that TED Talk on Iraq, I had a lot of people in Iran contacting me. And so we started a big program in Iran. And so I was working with a lot of Iranian students. So, yeah. Yes.
And this was sort of like touched on a bit throughout the course, because you keep saying this whole thing of like Caesar and degrees and all that, which I definitely agree with. I sort of was wondering your perspective as a professor on how it's almost encouraged to like lose sleep and like take so much time studying, like how it's like sort of like this like grind and hustle like all the time in college, like how you think that, like I personally think it's like encouraged sort of in college. It's sort of like a competition of like who can stay up the latest to do the best kind of thing, and that's how hard work is measured. I wanted to see how you feel about that, considering your personal experiences in school, but also as a professor.
Okay, so listen. Okay, I'll give you how I did it. Okay, and how I did it isn't necessarily the right way, but it's the way I did it. So I had the great fortune of not having parents who, well, my father died, so he would have been one of those parents pushing me, but not having parents to push me to get good grades, okay? And I say the great fortune because I was able to really discover learning on my own. And by the time in my third year in college is when I almost dropped out. I was ready. I was on the edge of dropping out, and I was at that point going to a 2-year community college. And then something happened, and I woke up. Like, I don't know what happened, but I just had this vision for the first time, and it happened in the library at the community college, that I really needed to understand the world. Like, I just was tired of not understanding anything. I'd look at newspapers, I'd look at the news, this, that, I'd be in conversations and people would be talking about things. I just didn't understand, okay? Now, there were a lot of things I did understand, right? I was a musician, I had a business at that point, and there were all sorts of things, right? But I didn't understand, and so I jumped in. But I had the good fortune of doing it late enough in life that I wasn't obsessed with the idea that I had to get good grades. What I had to do was learn. And what I wanted to do was just understand the world. That was my goal. It was not about grades. And so I took one class at a time, one quiz at a time, one paper at a time, whatever it was. And it really didn't matter what grades I got back. At first, I was a really bad student. You got to understand. Like, I was a pothead. And I didn't know the difference between a verb and a noun. I just couldn't, it just wasn't my world, right? So I had a lot of learning that I had to do to catch up, but it didn't matter to me. I was just interested in understanding the world. And so I stopped doing everything. All I did day and night was just study and read and think and be engaged in arguments with people and conversations and so on, right? Slowly I started to understand things. And then I went to grad school and I went on to get my PhD, but all the time knowing that all I cared about was not getting a good job, not making lots of money, not having a lot of things, not even really being happy. All I wanted to do was understand the world. And so so I would get C's on things, and it didn't matter because I understood that every doorway, like if this doorway didn't open for me because I flunked something or I didn't do well or I didn't get the kind of job or something that I needed, I knew that some other door over here was going to open. And then if I go through this door, and this is really important, I really had this vision. Then if I walk through this door, this is now going to be my life. And on the other side of that door is a lot of awesome, awesome things that I would never have experienced if I had gone through that door. And so every time a door closed, I just said, oh, okay, awesome. I'll go through another one, right? And so what happened for me is when I did pull all-nighters and when I work really hard. Like even today, all I'm doing is reading and studying and so on. I work really hard. But I do it because I love it. I don't do it because I'm trying to achieve something other than achieve understanding the world, right? Which I feel like I know less. Every day that goes by, I feel like I know less. And so C's earned degrees will get you the degree. But what's going to open the door that's going to lead to all of the amazing things in your life, right? Like someday you're going to have, let's say you have children. Let's say you're lucky enough to maybe fall in love with someone and maybe have children or something like that, right? And you're sitting with your child and you realize, and maybe you love this child more than anything in the world, and you're going to have the realization that all those doorways that didn't open for you, it's because they didn't open that you're sitting here with this child. And then you wouldn't change anything. And so I had the good fortune of that. And that's how I operate. So Caesar and degrees is like going to get your degree. You're gonna live, and ultimately you're gonna die. And like that's what it is. And in the meantime, you're gonna try to figure things out. And people say, well, but I want to make sure I have money. Money for what? For what? What do you want money for? What if you're gonna get money? If you're meant to have money, you'll have money. If you're meant to have things, you'll have things. So that's all going to work itself out. But you got to decide what's the purpose of being alive. Like what's that all about? And so I was lucky to be able to do all of that on my own terms. And I still do it today. Everything is today. I mean, look, everything I do is for that. You know? And I live with that in every moment. It's like doors open, doors closed. It's awesome. What superpower I would want to have and why? Someone on the stream wants to know. You know what? It would be able to go back in history and stand side by, and observe things as they happen. Just to be able to snap my fingers and go back and even just for a hot minute or something. Yeah. Oh, that would be my superpower. Man, bro.
So from all the things that you've done, you know, of the places that you've visited, all the people that you've helped, what is the thing that you're most proud of?
Man, pride is an odd thing because I don't have a lot of pride and think like, you know, I live and that's not like an emotion for me. It's not a feeling to a great degree. But maybe it's that I never got I didn't get caught. I have never gotten caught up with needing to achieve certain things to be happy. You know what I mean? Needing like to have like a resume and accomplishments and whatever it is. Like I never, that's the first thing I would say. I'm like really happy. It's very difficult to do, right? The second thing is that I'm still in love with my wife. Yeah. Like really in love. You know what I mean? Like love, like, yeah. No, I meant, okay, whatever. Okay. Okay. My part. Oh God. No, that I really like. I want to like just to you know, if you meet someone in life, look, man, hey, can I give you some advice? Relationships, long-term relationships are an ordeal. They are really, really, really difficult. Man, it is really difficult. And you think like, yo, I can do this because we've been together for 5 years. Man, 5 years is nothing. Wait till you get to your 30th year or your 40th year. Like you gotta, and to really, that person is still, not only is it the person you want to be with, but it's the person who's like smarter than you and more talented than you and more insightful than you. And when it's one of those people, it's like, holy man, that's just awesome. So yeah, I would say that. I would say I'm proud of that. Yeah. So, Joy, you got something? All right, Mom.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Throughout all your traveling and just all your experiences, is there one thing that you wish you never experienced?
I wish I never did, or
yeah,
I wish
like you like regret that, or like you never want to do that again.
Wait, so is there something that I actually did experience that I would never want to do again?
Yes.
There aren't many things. Listen, there really aren't many things, because remember, every doorway that is like a difficult doorway there's a learning experience on the other side of that, right? So, but I have one thing that I wouldn't do again, and if I could go back to it, I wouldn't do it. And so I was in the rainforest in the Amazon, and I came to this community. And it was a community of indigenous peoples, and they were called Shuar. It's a Shuar tribe, and they were actually the old like the headhunt. They were headhunters, as we talk about that, right? But they had stopped at that point. I mean, I wasn't. That's not part of this story. But to give you a sense of it, and they make this drink called chicha. And chicha is made by the yucca root. And yucca, if you know yucca is like potato. It's a starchy root, right? And it's very tasty. And they dig the chicha up, and they have a big community vat here, right? And they also, you chew the root, and you masticate it. You know, you chew it up, and you spit out all the juices, right? And there aren't a lot of juices, right? And so people just do that all day long. They get this big container, and it slowly fills up, right? Well, so I show up, and I'm like the guest, right? And so I'm sitting, you know, around the whole community, and they have this big bucket. It's a plastic bucket. It's like a kid would use, like so you'd use in playing in the sand or something, kind of something like that. Because you know, a lot of these times when you're in a community like this, you don't. It's just different, right? There weren't a lot of things. So I'm sitting down, and they pass the bucket, and they say like, okay, this is for you, right? Try it, and everyone's watching me, and I drink it, and it was like if someone had vomited you got all your friends on Friday night at State College, and you follow all of the sick people around, and you have them vomit in this bucket, and at the end of the night, you collect it all, and then you drink it, right? And so I was like, oh shit. So I drank it, and it was just, I had to say, okay, well, all right, it was fine, because they're all wanting to know what I think, because this is their drink. And so I pass it to the person next to me and say, oh, no, that's all for you, right? And I'm like, holy shit. So I would never do that again. Yeah. I haven't thought about that for 20 years probably. But yeah, I would say I'd never do that again. How about that? But it was cool. It's all good. Dude, you're on.
I was going to say, in your years of teaching, what's probably the deepest thing you've ever heard from like a student or a professor doing this sort of thing?
The deepest thing?
Yeah.
So I have a couple things. I don't know if it's first off, what's really important to understand is when you're in a position like mine, it's what Coach Franklin said the other day, right? Like he's got all these people, he hears the stories, he has conversations, 30-minute conversations with every player. You know, he's doing that today, he'll do it, you know. When you're in a position like mine, you get to hear a lot. Like this is just, dude, stand up really fast. Just look, these, they're just faces, right? It's just faces. It's just like, right? Yeah. And it's just like nothing. Either for you, it's just like, okay, whatever, right? Okay, all right, that's all. So, and that's how everybody is for me. But except that I have the opportunity to hear from people. And when I have the opportunity to hear from people, I hear people's stories. So I know there are people in this class who have cancer. I know there are people in this class whose parents are dying of cancer. I know there are people in this class who've lost parents, who've lost pets, who've lost grandparents. I know people in this class who are they're waiting for some kind of diagnosis to find out, like, okay, is this going to be, what's this mean for me? There are all sorts of things that are happening with people in this class that is incredibly humbling for me, because what that means is everywhere I go in the world, I know that every single person has a story. And I don't necessarily know what the story is, but I know that every single person has a story. And when you are in a position like mine, where you have the opportunity to every day see faces, but then get to hear the stories behind the faces, it's a daily reminder of things, right? So I know that it's random things that I say or that get said that may be the difference between, may save somebody's life. So years ago, I had a student, for example, who was addicted to heroin. And one day, just out of the blue, I had this like jolt of, this was back before a lot of people were addicted to heroin, but this dude was like, seriously. This jolt, something happened, I don't know, I just stopped in the middle of a sentence and I said, hey, by the way, and I guess I'm going to say it again, if you're an addict, like if you're addicted to something, whatever it is, whether it's, food or alcohol or some other drug or whatever it is, or self-talk that's really negative, or maybe another person, or who knows, right? You're addicted to something. Deal with it right now. Don't wait, because it gets harder. The longer you wait, the more difficult it gets, because these muscles, they, as I said this the other day, I think, like if you're an athlete and once you get those muscles trained in a certain way, it's really hard to break those habits. So you deal with it now. Like now. Like not tonight, not tomorrow morning, you just deal with it now. And you figure it out. Because that's what you have to do with addiction, right? And then it just becomes this thing. And then I said that, and then I just moved on, right? So this guy hated me. He sat in the back row. He hated me. He said he used to plot ways in which he would just like do all sorts of evil things with me and my body. Like I just went like, holy shit. The guy hated me. He was a really big dude, man, like really big. And I'm like, one day after class, he says, hey, I got to talk to you. And I got to talk in private. And he starts crying. And he says, you saved my life. And I'm like, what do you mean, dude? And he tells me the story about when I said that to him, it's like my words just shot right through his entire being. And I went, oh. I didn't say it to him. I just said it. It was just a random thing. And then he told me this, what happened, right? And what happened, because this was weeks later. And like, oh my God. And there are a lot of moments like that you get to have when you have the privilege of speaking in such a way. And I have a lot of stories a few stories like that. I mean, it probably are a lot. I could tell a lot, but I'm not going to pretend, because it's not just me. But, things like that. But anyway, I do want to say, listen, man, if you're dealing with addiction, or if you got something you really need to deal with, deal with it. Because, A, the chances of you, all the things that you tell yourself that you're not going to do, like you're not going to be your mother, you're not going to be your father, I'm never going to raise my kids like this, or whatever it is, if you're not dealing with it and really working it through, the chances are greater than not that you're going to do exactly what it is that you think you don't want to do. And it sucks. But that's what it is. So I would say that again, right? Yeah. Is that a fair answer? Yeah. There are a lot of things. I hear on the stream from people. I have the privilege of that too. Joy, do we have somebody else? Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if you've ever wanted to really talk about a topic, but you kind of thought it was going to be too controversial or cause too many problems.
That's a great question. there have been topics that my wife steers me away from wisely. Yeah. Or things that I might ways that I might want to approach a topic that she steers me away from. Yeah, she's really thoughtful. It's because of her that I still have a job, to be honest with you, right? Otherwise, I would say almost no. Like, I'm not going to talk about people. I'm not going to talk about like local, like, yeah. I say I can almost say no. I'm willing to talk about anything, but it's more the way I talk about them. Yeah, yeah. There's nothing controversial, right? Like now, there's certain things I don't want to say because it's on the stream, and I know, like, oh my God, these people take these little pieces on the stream and they run with it, and which is kind of my thing that happened with this past summer. It happens a lot, actually, but yeah. That answered the question, right? Somebody else. Bro.
In your 30 years of experience with Social 19, have you ever got into trouble with university because of the things you say?
Have I ever gotten into trouble with the university? Yeah. Well, what do you think? Yeah. I would say not in trouble. Here, let me just say this. So there's a lot of trust at the university, okay? And look, I've been here 30 years. I've been doing this class for 29 years. I think 29? Yeah, I don't know. I've been here a long time. So when you're here a long time, you build trust up. If you're not a lunatic, you're going to build a certain amount of trust, right? And so therefore, when things happen in class or things, whatever it is, people understand that that's kind of the nature of this class, and they also understand me, and they have a certain sense of trust in me that I'm not a complete lunatic, just like mildly. Okay, I'm just brave or ignorant enough to wade into some of the waters I wade into. But I do it thoughtfully. But the problem is sometimes people just want to take something and run with it. And then they report me, and then, they got the report hate thing, and then my boss has to watch the video and then decide, like, okay, and then, somebody else maybe will watch the video, and then they're like, okay, you're all good, but they're doing their part, which is fair. If you fill out the form that says Sam Richards is whatever because of whatever, the university's going to take that seriously, and they're going to check it out. So, okay. But yeah, I have been reported on more than one occasion. Yeah. Sometimes they're just silly things. But luckily we have video. That's another reason we started doing video, is because I want a record of everything. Everything. So whatever happens, I got a record. How about somebody else? Who's another question? Yes, ma'am.
So what do you want to do when you retire, or where would you want to, do you still want to travel for the rest of your life, or is there somewhere you really just want to settle down and stay?
I would probably have nowhere I really want to settle down, unless it was on the beach somewhere where I would just do nothing. Years ago I was on this beach in Mexico, and there was nothing at all. And I just slept in a hammock every night, and I drank Coronas and Sols, and I ate fish, and I was just that has always been my vision for where I want to go. But it's hard to walk away from everything. Yeah. Yeah. I love people. I have too many people that I love. We're taking this trip to Netherlands and to Belgium to see our Afghan team, because I love these folks, right? I mean, they're my friends, and and so I'm going to go see them, and they're my dearest friends. And Bassem is hopefully going to come up from Iraq, and I love Bassem, Mr. Rashidi, Rafi, Maliha, everybody. And so they were my friends, and we were lucky. You have friends, you know what I mean? It's just I have all these men that I love. It's just you met Ernso, oh man, I love these people. My God. Yeah. God, what an awesome thing. Joy?
Hi. Sorry. So I kind of have a lengthy story / question, so I'm sorry, but I was asked to come volunteer last Thursday when we talked about suicide and mental health, and I unfortunately couldn't make it, and I was pretty upset about it because it was a topic that I wanted to hear discussed about in this class the whole semester.
Did you watch the video?
No.
Make sure you watch it.
I will. So my story is I come from a very like toxic culture. I'm from the Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area, where everything's just about academic success, and where I went to high school, it was just all about grind. Parents kind of like competed with other parents through their children, and it was just like very toxic. So like I pulled so many all-nighters. I did not work as hard as like most of my classmates, but I think I worked really hard. I don't know. I think I had a good GPA and all, but like my classmates, they like on an average took 10 to 12 AP classes.
Yeah.
They always pulled all-nighters, and like it was never talked about, but like most of my classmates struggled with their mental health, and it was just such a toxic culture, and like just in summary, like it was all about academic success. A lot of my classmates ended up at Ivy Leagues, UC Berkeley, UCLA, just like all these prestigious institutions, and kids that went to state schools like Penn State were considered dumb. I don't think we're dumb. I
was going to say congratulations that you're at Penn State.
Thank you. I've met some really smart people here, and it's just like really unfortunate that we're considered dumb because we're not as, I don't know, like we don't go to as prestigious institutions as them. But it, like mental health where I come from, like teenage mental health where I come from is just so, it's such a like big topic that no one really talked about, but everyone, knows, everyone struggles with. And I actually like had a classmate, or I actually ended up losing a classmate, due to like all the academic pressure that he couldn't handle. So that's why this is such like a important topic for me. And I don't think a lot of people here like are aware of that culture, that toxic culture, because a lot of people here are from small like Pennsylvania. So I was just I just wanted to ask like what you think of this kind of culture, and if you think it's a prevalent issue in the States.
This is such a good, thanks for asking this. This is really good. And I would agree with you. If you all, anyway, first off, congratulations that you're at Penn State and not Stanford, right? Or Princeton or Harvard or Yale or whatever that bullshit is. Like, it's just so much, it's just so congrats. Coming from your school in particular, first off, I wouldn't let my kid do that. Like I would never, like my nieces and nephews, Lori and I have two nieces who are just all about A's and A's and A's, and we bribed them to flunk a class, and we would take them on any trip anywhere in the world with us and pay for it. They could travel with their aunt and uncle, right? But in order to do that, they had to flunk a class, and they didn't do it. No, they couldn't do it. And I'm like, well, too bad. But look, people, you're right. There are a lot of people who don't really fully understand the nature of the toxicity that comes with this drive in a place like Silicon Valley, like that kind of area, right? Because it's not the same. It is not the same. And what I will say is that God, I have so much to say. This goes back to some of what I was saying about dealing with one's own issues and the things that we really need to deal with ourselves, and question the things that really need to be questioned. And that if we don't do it now, we just keep spinning on the hamster wheel, and things can really fall apart pretty quickly. And when the toxicity, the toxic messages that this particular generation, right, that you've all gotten day after day after day about needing to be successful and how to be successful and what it looks like and so on, is just it's a fucking lie. It is a lie. And look, I'm successful, right? But I've never asked for a raise. I've never asked for a promotion. I've never sought a promotion. I've never sought a raise. There's none of that. I just live with the means in which it comes to me, and life is so much easier. And so when you're living according to somebody else's vision of how you should be or what should you be, well, first off, you have to see that that's not you. You've taken all those ideas from other people. That's not you. None of us are freely choosing any of that. And so therefore, you got to really work at it. And then work at it and do what you got to do to let it go. Because it's a poison, man. It is a poison. It's so damaging. And I say that knowing that you got to go through it on your own. You got to go through it anyway. You got to get there and get to the other side and have the experience and say like, okay, whatever. But yeah, thanks for saying that. I mean, I have so much I want to say. I have so much passion that I want to put into this, but yeah.
So you say that you've been teaching this class for almost 3 decades, and just out of curiosity, I was wondering what that first question, or the first class after 9/11 was like, and how teaching or like talking about that with the students.
So I had class on the morning of 9/11, on the afternoon at 1 o'clock on 9/11, okay? And we came into class. First off, I had students in class who they didn't know, they hadn't heard from their parents or their aunt or their uncle or somebody, right? So like it was all up in the air. We didn't know. We sat in silence. I said a few things, different students said some things, and then we had this experience where the entire class stood up and held hands, and we did a chant. And some of the, I had some African students, African American and African students that really led us in a chant. We had one in particular, this Ashe chant, and we just kept saying it over and over and over again, just to build the energy for everybody in the room. And that was probably except the day, aside from the class, which was the day after Joe Paterno got fired. That was probably the peak coming together experience that I've ever had in a classroom, the one of 9/11. And then that night, we had a gathering in the Peace Garden, which is out behind the McAllister building. All those rocks and the trees and so on, that's the Peace Garden, and that had been built. Yeah, so we gathered there. Huh. It's intense. Who's got a question? You have a question, bro? Oh, wait, hang on. Behind you. Yeah. There you are, Brian.
So I'm a senior studying electrical engineering. Actually, I'm not enrolled. I just come and listen because I like this class.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm about to graduate.
Dude, first off, I would say I would feel like I could feel good about that, except you said you're in electrical engineering. So like, well, this class is like, it's a pretty low bar anyway. So.
And you were at the event last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my question is, because I'm about to graduate this semester, do you have any life advice, financial advice for college new grads?
Yeah, I do. 2 things. You ready? The eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. Okay? Start investing early, and then you don't have to worry about later in life. Even if it's just $10 a week, Doesn't matter. The second thing is the story that I told you of the doors. As you go through life, remember that every door that opens for you and you walk through, on the other side are bad things that are going to happen to you. They're good things that are going to happen, but they're also bad things that are going to happen. And so while you're happily walking toward the door that's wide open, you think, I got that internship, or I got that job, or I got all that stuff, and you go toward it and you feel like you're on top of the world, you always remember that, yeah, well, but some stuff's going to be behind that door that I'm not going to want. And the reason that that's important is because when you go to the other side and you can't get through the door because it's closed, there are also things on the other side of that door that you're not going to want. And so, like, it doesn't matter which one you go through. It doesn't matter. You just go. It doesn't matter. You just go. That's my advice. Yeah.
So I was supposed to I wanted to volunteer for the class on Thursday as well, because I'm diagnosed with manic depression, which is bipolar, or bipolar type 1. And I just wanted to ask, like, what is the most, like, profound thing you've learned from somebody who's, like, neurodivergent, like myself?
Yeah.
Like someone with bipolar, but, like, borderline personality, schizophrenia, like anything, like, along those lines.
Yeah. So the most profound thing I've learned is that the mind, there are two things, ready? The mind is just incredibly complex. The brain, the body, the mind, body, spirit is so incredibly complex that we're kind of in control of some things, very much in control of other things, not in control of other things. And once we hold ourselves in that space, it's much easier to have great respect for the own variation or the own ways that our mind, bodies, and spirits are organized inside of our own beings, and that we don't beat ourselves up. Like, you can't beat yourself up over that, right? Like, you just like, this is it. This is what I've been brought on this journey on earth. This is what this is how you've manifested, and this is what it is. And you stand in front of a mirror and you're going, this is me. This is how I am. And so you do your best you can. Yeah. And I've seen that some of us who think we can escape from this, that's because you don't have as many years in as I do. When you have as many years in as I do, you start to see these hills and valleys and like, whoa, 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 whoa. And you have got to have great respect for the power that is the spirit. Yeah, so I would say that's what I've learned from people over the years. So it really keeps me from deeply judging and like, yeah. Is that fair? Yeah.
You talked a lot about how, like, your wife helps you with a lot of stuff and has help you keep your job. What have you helped your wife with? Like, in terms of person,
yeah. Learning how to control her rage at me. Because she has enough of it that she's had to learn to control it. No, I would say, I'm a person that just, I'm a person who will, I go out in the world. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid to go anywhere. I'm not afraid to meet anybody. And I just go. And I've really helped her with that. She grew up in a smaller family and, yeah, just different. And so, like, I really helped her to get outside. I'm just not afraid of anything. I've never been afraid of anything. Which, to my peril, by the way, has almost gotten me killed a few times. So, more than one occasion has almost led to the end of me. But it's been helpful for her. In fact, she kept me from getting killed. Her fear kept me probably from dying one time. Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up the Zodiac sign. And Lori is a Aries moon, which for any of you who pay attention to that,
it's a lot of power, man. A lot of fierce power. Yeah. One time, this guy was trying to rob me, and I was laughing at him because his gun was really old. And I'm like, that fucking gun can't even, this is all in Spanish, right? And I'm like, that gun can't even shoot. Like, come on, give me a break. And Lori's like, dude, shut the F, just give him whatever he wants, And meanwhile, I'm like, come on, dude, give me a break. That gun, whatever. Fuck. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So you said every person has a different story, and every story has a title. What will be your title of your story?
The title of my story is... Oh, man. God. God, dude, I don't know. Keep playing, keep thinking, like nothing matters at all. See, you know, those of you who have lost a parent, how many of you have lost a parent already at this stage in life, right? So you know that like when you lose a parent, it just changes everything, right? You lose everything, and at the same time, it's a gift. It's like there's also a gift to it, because you see that life is like sand that goes through your fingers. And you understand, right? Everyone in your life is going to go. You're going to go. You see that. It's such a gift. It's so painful and tragic, and a gift at the same time. And I think early on I was given that gift, and I made use of it because I went out and explored on my own. And maybe that's the title. Explore as though nothing matters. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that.
We got a couple questions from the stream. I'll ask one of them. Opinionated Matt asked, there's a phrase that goes as followed: people are like tea bags. You discover what's inside when they go through boiling water. Can you comment on that? Is it true that the nature of a person is revealed only in the most extreme conditions?
Yeah, I would say that.
Cool.
Yeah, I would say. I see that even with myself. I've been in some really, really extreme conditions, and that's when you know what you're made of, right? And it matters more when you get to my age, because you have enough time. You think you're a certain way. You think that this is how you're going to react, and then you don't react. And that you really understand. Like this pandemic really rocked my world as an example. All right.
Another question.
Wait, is that opinionated Matt from Italy?
He's not from Italy, yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah. Another person asked, why do Westerners talk about working against Muslims because of Sharia law in their countries, but see no problem in promoting and implementing democracy in Islamic countries?
Or how about this? How about we critique Sharia law, but so many Americans, Christians, are trying to instill Sharia law here under Christianity. We just think that you can't do it under Islam, but we can do it. We can use the Bible as the basis of our law, but we can't use the Quran. So that's actually my question.
Last one. Which religion will be the future religion of the world, and why?
Ooh, man.
Prophecy here. Write it down, somebody.
Yeah, agnosticism. Agnosticism, really. It's like scientific, logical positivism, I think. Yeah, it's really probably science. Not in a different form, I think. Yeah, I don't know. And then I think it's just, dude, there will not be. Can I answer that question? We will blow the world up before there's any major change in the religions that we have. We will, unfortunately, probably blow the world up, which sucks to think about. Hey, Jeff, I have a question for you. By the way, so Jeff you were a student 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
7.
7?
I took it as a junior here, my first semester.
Dude, I didn't tell this class the story of when I outed. The first time...
So, wait. So the first day of class, you know how you have the plugs next to you in the seats that don't work? Yeah, well, I didn't know that they didn't work. So I plugged my phone charger into it, didn't realize it, had to come back here. And actually, I saw Sean yesterday, so if Sean's watching this, hey, Sean. But there was a guy who I took the class with who didn't have... He had like a disease or something that he lost part of his arms and his legs.
Yeah.
And so he was talking to Sam and Lori, and so I came up and talked to Sam, and I wasn't out at the time, so I told him privately. And actually, I was an intern at a mission in Haiti the summer before, and one of the girls sat right back there. She was one of my students. So Sam asks me to come up for the activity where you have the resumes. And it's me and a black dude, and he's like, and you're gay, so like that's even more of an obstacle that you have to face. oh wait, you're out, right? I was like, I am now. But that was before the stream. We just had one camera in the front, so different time.
But listen, man, this is what's hard. You know what I mean? You do your best, right? Like, I don't know, whatever. Okay, but it's all good.
Dude, he didn't even know my name for like 2 years, but remember that fact of me?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Anyway, dude, what have you learned? So this is your last class after 7 years. Jeff's been the manager of he's a manager of so many things, but the person in charge of technology, the person who's taken the stream to the next level, is just running all the back channel stuff, working with Joy, working with Darnisha, working with everybody here. What have you learned just by sitting through so many classes, watching so many videos, hearing from so many different people? What have you learned about yourself over the past 7 years?
That we should have talked about this question before class.
Okay,
No.
you can think about it.
No, I didn't think about this before. There's always room for empathy, and those of the people around you who you think you can't agree on, you just have to pry a little bit. Everybody is reachable. You can always have a conversation with somebody no matter where they're from, what they believe in. Of course, there's extremes, stickiness at the end, but for the most part, just about everybody. And really do travel. And what he said, positive and negative consequences come from every action you take. So it really doesn't matter. Like right now, I'm in the process of finding jobs, and I just had an opportunity to move down to Florida, but it would cost me a lot in my personal life, so I didn't take it. And part of me was just like, this is a huge opportunity for like a dream job, but also all of these negatives. But in the end, it doesn't matter which one I take, because if I do move to Florida, all of these other amazing things could happen. So it doesn't matter. So I chose one, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, that's it, man. Dude, awesome. Yeah, and what I want to say to you is thanks for taking this whole thing to the next level, man. Because honestly, you've been like foundational for me as just that. Even foundational, man. It takes a whole team of people. So, thanks, in a serious way. Yeah. Wait. Thanks, man. Oh. All right. Who else has does anyone have a really personal question? Yeah. Well, I'm not asking for it, really.
I was just going to say, what's one of your most favorite memories?
Of life?
Yes.
Want to know the one that changed me? That changed me more than any other thing? I think I said it earlier in the semester when I did mushrooms in the mountains of Mexico. Completely changed my life. I think about it all the time. It's because I saw God. Like I met God. Yeah. Then when you meet God, this is serious. You know what I mean? That's a favorite memory, right? You can imagine. Yeah. I will say that. Wait, someone who hasn't... Bro, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm not swearing. I'm just kind of like... You've said in the past that both CNN and Fox kind of hate you because it's like two extremes at times.
CNN has not done a hit piece on me.
Okay. So, yeah, and because of some of your statements and some of your opinions, you might receive a few death threats and whatnot. Have you received death threats before?
Yeah.
How do you handle that kind of thing?
I just disregard it.
Because I'm receiving.
Because it's not going to happen.
True.
It's not going to happen, man. You just set it aside.
Right.
It's not. Look, it's going to happen to somebody, but the chances that it's going to happen to me or you it's like, People. It's really easy to say things, to write things, to send emails, to send text messages, tweets, whatever. It's really easy to do that, but to follow through for every one that goes out there. For every million that goes out there, maybe one person maybe tries to follow through. It's just it's so rare. It's so rare. Yeah, honestly. It doesn't matter what country it is. It's so rare. Yeah, so I just let it go. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I transferred to Penn State my junior year, and this is kind of a more personal question, I guess. But in one of our previous classes, we talked about like who we gravitate towards, like as friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And Penn State is probably like the most diverse college that I've been to. I went to 2 before I transferred here, and surprisingly, like now I'm graduating next or very soon, and majority of the friends that I've made and kept here are white, and I've had the most negative experiences with non-white people, not just other black people, but like other non-white people. And I've talked to like my roommate about this who's also black, and I'm just like, why? Like, I don't know, like I felt the most hostility and I guess certain forms of like bullying from non-white people and the most acceptance and empathy from white people. So I don't know if it's just like more so a Penn State thing or like, I don't know, I've never really been able to like wrap my head around it.
All right, I'll give you my take on it, okay? It's a difficult place to be. You know, we're bringing lots of people together, and we're all being put into one spot, right? And it's really hard. It's difficult if you're a person of color. And first off, it's also hard for white people, but it's just in a different way. But it's different if you're a person of color to find your space, right? Because it's what we talked about the other day. I think we were with some students who were talking about like trying to be part of their culture, and yet they're trying to fit in a different culture, and you're trying to just find the way to do that and easily slide in and out of it. Well, it's very difficult. And at the college years, these are the years of a lot of judgment. So you got a lot of people who are like, it's very easy to point your fingers at other people, but you have 3 pointing back at you, but nonetheless, you're pointing your fingers to see how other people aren't doing it right, because you're trying to find yourself, right? And when you're in that world of judgment of finding yourself, you're also finding the right answers. And you think you get the right answers. Because like at your age, like first off, you think you have them when you're a teenager, but then you think you have them when you're an undergrad. And then you think like, oh, I got these, and I'm going to impose those answers on somebody else once I've been conscientized. And a lot of that process, it's happening a lot at a place like Penn State. So you have a lot of black and brown young people who are really doing a lot of judging of other black and brown people because they're trying to find themselves. And so that's why that happens a lot. And it goes away. Like, you know, it'll go. Like, people won't be the same. You'd be surprised at some of the, like, really radicalized, so-called radicalized black and brown students I've had from, like, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago who now are just like, whatever. Like, it's just so different. So, yeah, that's what's going on. So you have to understand. Here's another lesson. Understand that life is long. And the people you meet, like, right now, like I meet you as a white person. Are you white? Yeah. Okay. So as a white person right here, but in 10 years, you're going to be a different white person. So it's like that kind of stuff. We evolve in that way. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, you've been here for 30 years now, and you seem like someone who likes to explore the world. Why do you stay in State College?
Because no door ever opened up for me. Like, I have things going on, but I think the Creator, I think I'm just supposed to be here. I always had the idea that some door would open up and I would just be like, okay, I'll go. And my wife as well, and it never did. And so here we are. That's like, and what I did was, well, I couldn't be out in the world all the time. I wouldn't be here. If my wife was different, I would be living in another place. I would never be living in the United States. I would live in different countries because that's just what I would do. But because I couldn't do that, I mean, I have lived in other countries. I've spent 2.5 years of my life living outside the U.S., but because I can, I bring the world to me. So that's why we have so many international students. It's awesome. I bring the world to me.
And I have a follow-up question. If you could live anywhere else, where would you live?
Just anywhere closer to the ocean. Yeah. And it wouldn't matter. It just would have to be closer to the ocean. Yes, ma'am. That's a nice question.
I was just going to ask what your zodiac sign is.
I'm a Virgo.
Oh my God.
So is my wife. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I'm a Leo.
If you come to our house, what are you?
I'm a Leo.
A Leo?
Yeah.
If you come to our house, everything is organized, man. If you look at my wife's sock drawer, you wouldn't believe it. It's unbelievable. It's a work of art. Yeah. Virgos.
I just had a quick one.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
What's your favorite restaurant in State College?
Dude, I don't have one, man. Honestly, I don't. I don't have any. Yeah, I do. Kelly's, man. On the outside of town with the big bowl on top. Great fresh food, man. Kelly's is my favorite. Yeah.
What's the most humbling experience you've had outside?
Humbling experience?
Outside of the classroom.
I think when I meet when I meet people who are like your age, who are much more talented intellectually than I am, and in many ways than I am, and it's very humbling, actually, to be a teacher and to live every moment knowing seeing your limitations. It's cool, actually. I meet a lot of people who are just so talented. Young people like yourselves, you know. Yeah, dude.
Thank you. All right, so how do you act differently compared to like in the classroom and in your personal life?
I don't, dude. Jeff. I don't. I
Like,
call my wife
same
dude.
dude.
I just call you dude. I call my
Yeah.
wife dude. I call my wife bro. I'm like, hey bro, can you and she'd be like, all right.
So like, does your mindset change at all?
No,
like
it
when
never
s-
changes.
Never.
That's part of my problem.
Really?
I don't know if it's a
Really?
problem, but yeah, it never changes.
Really?
Oh, I'm meeting with the president or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, what's up? I called him bro. Like, I
Really?
don't know. People are bro. The dude. I call him dude. Like, did you realize you called President Barron dude? I'm like, no.
awesome.
Well, why wouldn't I, though?
Yeah. So there's a picture in Sam's office of Sam with Joe Paterno when Sam had super long Jesus hair. And I guarantee you he was like, yo, dog, what's up?
What's
to
up?
Joe freaking Paterno.
People think, so there are a lot of people like on the stream, they're like, why does this guy talk like that? Why, like, you know why? Just because I'm just me. I'm just me. I don't care. You know, yeah.
So, have you ever had a pet? And
I
what
did. I
was
had a
it?
dog, a Portuguese water dog, who I loved. And when he died, I laid, can I tell this story to dog owners? I laid over his body when he died, and we were burying him. He was sitting on the edge of he's buried in our front yard. I love this dog so much. And I always wondered if I could feel grief. Because when my father died, I cried, and then I moved on with life. And I didn't cry a lot. I don't cry very easily, and I wish I cried more easily, but I don't. I do sometimes. But with this dog taught me that I could feel grief and love, unconditional love. And when he died, I laid over his body, holding him, and I wailed for 10 minutes in our front yard. I wailed and had such grief. And I love that dog. Like you can't imagine. And we've not gotten another one because I don't want to have that. We're just not. Yeah. Do you have a dog? Do you love it? Could you imagine doing that? Yeah. Oh my God. All right.
Hi.
Go ahead, man.
So we went over like lots of different issues in this whole semester. And one question I had will be, what will happen if we flip the coin? Like we talked about so many different discriminations happening in so many different worlds, so many ways. But what happens if we like flip the coin? Instead of, let's say, dominance of some group A over B, if it is like the opposite, if it is B who is lording over A, what's going to happen? Will it be the same thing?
It's the same thing. It's human beings. And it is around the world. Like, see, people here in this country think that, like, oh, this is like for example, it's all about white people. It's like the world isn't about white people are not the dominant group all over the world, man. And white people are not doing all the exploitation all over the world, right? Like, you know that. You're from India, right? So we can go up to Kashmir. We can look at Muslims. Like, you looking at, I'm watching right now, like, properties of Muslims being expropriated by Hindus. I'm like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So it's like, you could just flip a coin and it's going to be the same thing. Yeah. I have to remind people of that a lot. Dude.
All right. If you had to teach any other class, like if it wasn't for Soc, would you be able to go into teaching or no?
If
it wasn't for Soc, would you be able to go into teaching?
Nah, Soc gives me like the widest range of talking about things. Yeah. I could teach it doesn't matter. Look, I don't teach, I listen to you all, right? So, yeah. But Soc gives me like the widest range of talking about the things that I really enjoy. Yeah.
Sam.
Hey, Ogana, come here for a second. Yes.
Out of all of your experiences, do you feel that there was something that made you contradict everything you thought you knew about human nature and society?
Shit. Yeah. I spent time with, I was able to spend time with millionaires and some billionaires. And I felt like I understood people. I had to just put a lot of things that I thought, like Coach Franklin, you might think like, oh, this guy, like all he does is coach football. This guy, he's a brilliant sociologist. If you listened to him the other day, he is such a smart and thoughtful sociologist. He's so smart. Like, he's so talented in that way of thinking. And so when you meet really wealthy people, I have a similar kind of experience, like billionaires. I have to turn my thinking on its side. So, hang on. Bro, you're graduating, right?
Okay.
What's one thing you've learned working at World in Conversation about human beings?
About human beings, okay.
Yeah, you get this is the last word, and then I have one final thing to say. What have you learned by being here, working, but not just in 119, but also at World in Conversation?
I'd say two things. First one is about belief. I've really seen that, this is just in my experience, but I've seen that human beings, when you believe in something, and you actually believe it, back of your head, get called crazy, allow people to doubt you, allow all that shit to happen, and you accept it, you eat it, you get what you want to get done regardless, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
In my experience, if you believe it will be done. And the other thing is perspective, I'd say. I think we don't know how much perspective shapes what we get from the world. So I'm like, you being around someone that makes $1 million would make you make $1 million. You being around someone that makes $5K would make you make $5K, just because how you think is really shaped by that. You like what you believe is possible, what you believe isn't possible, is all shaped by who you're around and the questions you're asking, and the answers you've been given practically. And you can only be given certain answers from the right people. So I think I've learned that. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Hey, listen, y'all. Good luck with the quiz. Make sure you do it. Take care of it. And can we have a round of applause for the class? Yeah.